Hi, my name is James Rogers. I'm with Nexus Youth and Family Services. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist with our therapy department. And today I'll be talking about social media and mental health. So, we're going to start today by talking about social media addiction. What this is simply a behavioral addiction that is characterized by being overly concerned about social media. It's driven by an uncontrollable urge to log in or use social media, and it's devoting so much time and effort to social media that impairs other important life areas. It is a growing problem that we have noticed. It does and can start off casually and then turn into more impairing life areas. And what we'll generally see is maybe there's some stress going on because a lot of times people will use social media as a way to cope with stress. And so then as the stress maybe increases, so will the social media use to where a point where you create a habit of using social media when you get stressed. And so maybe the higher the stress level, maybe the longer and more frequent use of social media. So I'd like to continue by talking about some other problems that we've seen with social media use. One thing that social media has promised us is to keep and stay connected. Now, this has allowed us to stay connected to groups and people who we might not have been able to connect with maybe even a decade ago. And as a result, some of these connections, maybe some of these groups that have been able to exist has caused some damage. Maybe some extremist groups that have been able to connect and stay connected and feel empowered as a result of their connection. There's also some political impact that we've seen with social media, and we've also seen a mental and physical health impact. We've seen a decline in mental and physical and life satisfaction with the higher range and higher use of social media. So now some effects of social media addiction. I think one that has been kind of very prevalent that we've known about is our self-esteem decreases. The biggest thing is kind of the comparison game, right? We see someone's highlight reel on their social media account, and so we compare our lives to them, and because it's not maybe equal or even above what their life looks like, there is a decrease in self-esteem. And there's also we've seen a lot of socially isolation happen because we're disconnected maybe from what reality is, or maybe how we are perceived or how we perceive ourselves or perceive others. We've also seen a slight correlation in maybe work productivity, obviously because we're on social media, we're not working, we're doing our school. And so we kind of start to decrease in productivity, maybe decrease in our social engagement. Maybe we assess our value on things or other people's opinions more as a result of social media use. And something that we can also see is that a lot of people will check social media at night or will have trouble sleeping as a result of comparing themselves or being worried about how they're being perceived online. So now we're going to talk about how social media affects the brain. Due to the effect that it has on the brain, social media is addictive both physically and psychologically. The reward area in the brain and its chemical messenger pathways affect decisions and sensations. So when someone experiences something rewarding or uses an addictive substance, neurons in the principal dopamine producing area in the brain, which is kind of our reward system in the brain, are activated, causing dopamine levels to rise. Therefore, the brain receives a reward associated with the drug, or in this case, social media activity, therefore positively kind of reinforcing that behavior. Reward centers of the brain are most addictive when people are talking about themselves. When a person posts a picture and gets positive social feedback, such as likes, and it stimulates the brain to release dopamine, which again rewards that behavior and kind of continues on the social media habit. So you can see how very addicting social media can become as a result of how our brains reward certain behaviors. So now I'd like to talk about a study of 150 teenagers between the ages of 13 and 18 that were given different photos of different items, but then also some photos that were including some of their own. Now, as you can maybe guess, that the more maybe likes from friends and honestly even strangers, there's much more higher activity in the brain, in the teenage brain. The social media likes influence decision making in the teenagers, but it also inhibits teenagers' brain from engaging in certain activities. And something that we saw kind of through this study was a correlation between stress, an increase in stress, depression, anxiety, and attention within the next kind of upcoming generation. Now let's talk about 7 signs that social media might be taking over. The first one is that you might check your phone first thing in the morning. The second one is you may reread and double check social media, maybe throughout the day or in that moment. 3, you are anxious when you cannot check your social media. You get upset when you don't get the response you were hoping for. Number 5, you lose track of the time browsing through social media, neglecting family, friends, school, maybe hobbies. 6, you spend a lot of time overthinking and planning your posts. 7, you question your posts when they don't attract attention. Those are 7 signs. Now, there's a few kind of maybe nuances with some of them. Obviously, with number 6, if your position or maybe you are in a position where you are making money from social media, it might be important to kind of think through and plan your posts. But this is more of overthinking, causing kind of extreme anxiousness, causing maybe consistent anxiousness over your posts and what you're posting, how much likes you are getting, and what kind of impact you're having. So now let's talk about social media and mental health. Research has shown that there is an undeniable link between social media use, negative mental health, and low self-esteem. While social media platforms have their benefits, using them too frequently can make people feel increasingly unhappy and isolated. Also, the comparison of materials and things and lifestyles that these promote, and we've talked about that. The comparison game can be so detrimental to our mental health. Instagram and Facebook users can see curated content, advertisements and posts that are specifically designed to appeal to you. There's also algorithms that if you watch certain videos or look at certain content, you'll see that more and more, and it'll just kind of add to your interests. So just a little bit more about social media impacts on mental health. Social media facilitates an environment in which people are comparing their realistic kind of offline selves to what we would call maybe someone's highlight reel, right? Something edited, something that others kind of put on intentionally, maybe with filters, maybe not really true to what is going on in this scenario. Maybe a highlighted reel of themselves. Excessive social media use can not only cause unhappiness and a general dissatisfaction with life in users, but it can also increase the risk of developing mental health issues such as anxiety and depression, which we have mentioned before. And again, the constant comparing oneself to others can lead to low self-esteem, maybe even a need for perfection, and can also heighten social anxiety disorders. So overuse of social networking sites is as much more problematic in children and young adults because their brain and social skills are still developing. Research has shown that adolescents who habitually use social media from a young age have severely stunned social interaction skills. The competition for attention and likes can even lead to online bullying, name calling, rumor spreading, and harassment among adolescents. This has always happened, but with the use of social media, it just provides more maybe negative opportunities to do these online bullying, name calling, rumor spreading. All right, so now let's talk about what to do. The first one is be a good example and looking at your own social media use. A big part of what teenagers and kids will see is they'll look to you as the example of how they should interact with social media. And maybe one way you can do that is taking a break. Maybe it's during the day, maybe it's more longer term, maybe it's for a week, couple of weeks, whatever you feel is necessary to take a break from. I think one thing is setting realistic rules and boundaries, at kind of defining what age someone should get a phone and what apps they're allowed to get, and maybe even setting up limits and time restrictions, maybe with yourself, but then maybe also with your kids and teenagers. Setting expectations for when the phone is not allowed. Maybe that's during dinner time. Maybe that's during homework. Maybe there's a time where you guys play a board game as a family. And again, making sure that you know what is going on the cell phone, and what is appropriate to post or to use. So here's a great example of a cell phone contract that you can utilize and use at your home or with family members, or maybe even with yourself, and you can hand this to someone that will hold you accountable to this cell phone contract. And why this is important is, one, that you would have an objective kind of standard that you're looking to, that you can go, hey, here's how I want my cell phone usage to look like. Hey, maybe here's how my social media usage to look like. And so that way you can be very, very clear. And it's important that you're very, very clear, not only with yourself, but then also with your kids and teenagers on what kind of they're responsible for, the usage, on time restrictions. It's going to be very important to be very clear about your expectations. So here's a great resource for kind of guidelines to social media and technology. Kind of what you'll see on with guidelines for social media with kids. Some social media tips, maybe an acronym, a great acronym that you can kind of provide your kid or teenager with in order to kind of obviously think through, as it says, what they're posting. There are some age requirements in terms for certain social media platforms. There's some social media tips on kind of what you're sharing, how to share it, making sure that it's appropriate. And there's also guidelines for technology use, kind of how long, maybe even for how long during a day, maybe how long even you are more comfortable with too. And then maybe some general rules for cell phone use. So here's a few more things that we thought might be helpful. So what else can you do? When you know better, you can do better. So educating yourself, learning more about the signs of social media addiction, maybe learning more about social media. There's a great book, American Girls, Social Media, and the Secret Lives of Teenagers. Netflix has a great documentary on the social dilemma. I would highly recommend watching that. YouTube, Why You're Addicted to Your Smartphone, is a great resource. And then Our Pact, this app allows parents to control the screen time of certain apps, shut down apps during certain hours such as bedtime, school, and study time. And then Onward, an addiction management app designed to equip both adults and children with the tools to overcome the compulsions, habits, and breaking those bad habits. Here are also a few more resources as well. Why am I addicted to my smartphone quiz? Do I need a digital detox? And a parent's guide to teens, social media, and smartphone addiction. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. Again, my name is James Rogers. I work with Nexus Youth and Family Services. You can find us at 601 Court Street, Suite 210 in Jackson, California. Or you can reach us at 209-257-1980. Thanks for watching.